So today I want to talk about happiness because it appears in this week's Parshat Ki Tavo, which opens up with talking about the commandment of the first fruits, that we are to put them in a basket and to bring them up to the Kohen HaGadol of the day, to the land that God has given us. And we offer them up to God, and we actually declare a little bit of history to the Kohen HaGadol, starting with the Arami who tried to destroy our forefather, and then we went down to Egypt where we were enslaved and suffered and cried out to God, and God saved us with signs and miracles and took us out of Mitzrayim, and eventually, of course, brought us into this land and gave us this land where we grew these fruits that we are now bringing up, the first fruits, to God. And after that, it has the pasuk that says, very interestingly enough, and you shall be happy with all the good that God has given you. And this is said like an objective statement. It's not a phrase that if you shall see the goodness that God has given you and you shall bring it up, or if you perceive that what you have is good. It is said in such a way that you shall be happy with all the good that God has given you. And, we know that there are many different people with many different situations, but I think that the point that's trying to be made here is that no matter what that is, you should be happy with all the good God has given you, is saying that whatever God has given you is good, and that everybody's situation, whatever they have, is from God, and what God knows is best for you, and therefore it is good. And when he tells us to be happy with all this good, people have great difficulty with that. They say, how can we be commanded to be happy? Happiness is an emotion. And you can't just, turn it on and off like a light switch. But I think what God is trying to tell us is that it is within our hands a lot of times. And I'm not talking about people that are clinically depressed, but for the bulk of people that, tend to be unhappy on a daily basis, what God is trying to tell us is that happiness can, at least for sure in the beginning, start off as a decision, as a frame of mind, as us saying that we are going to be happy. Now, how do we do that? I think that what the pasuk is trying to tell us is that it's acceptance, accepting that whatever it is that we have at this moment that God has dealt us or given us is good. And if we accept that, that's the first step. I think many people are unhappy today because they battle their realities. And if you're constantly at war with what your reality is, it's so tiring and frustrating and can really wear you down. But if you accept your situation and say, I'm going to do the best with whatever God has given me at this moment, and move on from there, it really can give you peace of mind, which is the first step in achieving happiness. I think the next steps are alluded to in the Parsha, because then it goes on to tell us, after it talks about what we are commanded to bring up, then it talks about this devotion that we have to God, of serving God with all our heart and soul, and recommitting of the nation to God before they're entering the land. They're commanded to write on stone, to put plaster on stone and write out the whole Torah once again, and renewing their commitment, because that's really the second step. Once we've acknowledged that everything comes from God, which is what the Bikurim, the commandments to bring first fruit is acknowledgement that everything we have is from God. The second thing is making that commitment, is renewing that commitment, is saying, okay, I realize that everything is from you, God, and so I'm committed to this relationship that we discussed in the history of us being God's people and us having the commitment to follow all the commandments. And we have this marriage with God. And it's so interesting because the other place where that comes to my mind when we think of happiness is marriage. We know we're commanded l'sameach chatan v'kala, which is to get them off on the right step so they can have a happy marriage. And what is a happy marriage? A happy marriage is a good marriage, because we know that in life marriages are going to have their ups and downs, and it's not all going to be all good fun. But what makes a happy marriage is what makes a good marriage is what when people are committed to one another and they know that they can depend on one another and that they're always there for one another and that they stay true to their vows to one another. And same holds true with us and God, is that we have this relationship with God, and we're about to enter Israel, our new home with God. So we renew all our vows and commitments and the whole Torah, and we say to God that we want to stay true to this relationship and following all the Torah, and that commitment will make us happy, because it's all about this relationship, this marriage with God. And if we know that we're living our life with and being faithful to God and God being faithful to us, and that then things will be good. It will be a good marriage, meaning we'll always have that peace of mind and be able to rely on God and feel that there is purpose and meaning imbued in our life, which is in all the mitzvot. Because another thing that can lead people to not being happy is, unfortunately, the living our lives, the day-to-day grind and the monotony of doing the same things over and over and over again could be depressing and forces us to ask why. What is this all for? But if we think about our history and God giving us the Torah and what it's all about, from the beginning to the end, from Avraham Avinu to Mashiach, even to think if we're just a cog in the machine, there's great value and there's a purpose and that there's a reason for everything, and that we're a part of that. We're a part of that, and that sometimes we get bogged down that we're doing these little seemingly meaningless things, but they're not, because as we know from the Torah, it's not always exactly what you're doing, but how are you doing it? And God makes everyone's life meaningful that way, because there are commandments on everything, from when we get up in the morning and we have commanded to wash our hands, we say Modani, until we go to sleep at night, and we declare our belief in our faith in the one and only true God, and everything in between, everything, how we get dressed and how we eat and how we conduct our business and what we learn, when we learn, and how we pray. All these things, everything in the day have commandments and are infused with meaning and purpose, and let us feel that it's all valuable and it's all attached to something meaningful. And it reminds us of that purpose when we're commanded in the way we conduct our lives. So I think that's also, I feel blessed, and it helps me at least have peace of mind and be happy, feeling that I have, my life is full of meaning. So I think that's step number 2 of being happy, is to find that meaning. And it's easy to find that meaning in the Torah, because it's laid out for us there. It explicitly says, what it's all about. And that's why, of course, learning Torah always brings me great joy. But I hope that we can all do these, take these steps of accepting our situation, doing the best we can with everything that God has given us to the best that we know how, with the help of the Torah, to discover how that is, and to find our meaning, which we most certainly all have in this world and this planet, no matter what we're doing at this moment. And I hope that we can go into Shabbat with this peace of mind and happiness, and that we should all be blessed to only receive the blessings that are written out in Ki Tavo and never ever have to know of any of the nightmares and the curses. I hope that God blesses us all with peace and happiness. Shabbat Shalom.